I stared at the paper taped to our refrigerator, my duffel bag still slung over my shoulder. 9 months of classified operations in Eastern Europe evaporating from my mind. Sophia had drawn our house in blue crayon, stick figures of our family in the yard and a sleek black sedan parked across the street. Daddy. Sophia barreled into my legs, 8 years old and radiating pure joy. You're home. I knelt, hugging her tight, but my eyes stayed fixed on that drawing. Hey sweetheart. What's this picture about? That's the car that comes every Tuesday, she said matter-of-factly. Mom says it's nothing, but I see the man inside watching us. Ice formed in my gut. Major Ryan Blackwood, 15 years military intelligence, cyber espionage countermeasures specialist. And I just learned my 8-year-old had better situational awareness than most trained operatives. Where's Mommy? Upstairs. She's been on the phone a lot since you called yesterday. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, muscle memory from a dozen raids kicking in. Something was wrong. The house felt different. Not just the usual displacement after months away, but something deeper. Foreign. Melissa stood in our bedroom back to me, phone pressed to her ear. Told you he's back early. We need to. She spun around, saw me, and her face went white. I'll call you back. Call who back? I asked, setting down my bag. Work crisis with the Henderson account. She forced a smile, but her tells were obvious, touching her neck, avoiding eye contact, stepping backward. Welcome home, baby. I'd interrogated enemy assets with better poker faces. Mel, who's been watching our house. What do you mean? Sophia drew a black car. Says it comes every Tuesday. Ring any bells? Her laugh sounded rehearsed. Kids have active imaginations. You know how she is with her stories. I walked to the window, scanning the street. Normal suburban Virginia. Manicured lawns, soccer mom SUVs, the Henderson family across the street washing their minivan. No black sedan. But something had my daughter spooked enough to draw crimson on those windows. Ryan, you look exhausted. Why don't you shower? I'll make dinner. I nodded, but my mind was already working. 9 months in the field had honed instincts that kept me alive in Budapest, Prague, Warsaw. Those same instincts were screaming now. In the shower, I inventoried the house changes I'd noticed. Garage keypad had been reset. Security system showed gaps in recordings and Melissa's phone behavior. Most telling, she'd used a name I'd never heard. Who's Uncle Theo? I asked Jake during dinner. My 11-year-old son looked up from his spaghetti. Mom's friend from work. He's cool. Brought me that new video game. I glanced at the Xbox controller on the counter. Top of the line, $300. That was nice of him. Yeah, he comes over when you're gone. Helps Mom with stuff. What kind of stuff? Melissa's fork clattered. Jake, finish your dinner. He fixed the garage door. Sophia chimed in. And he knows about computers. He looked at Daddy's office. The room went dead silent. My home office contained classified hardware, encrypted drives, backup authentication tokens for military networks. No civilian had clearance to even enter that room. Jake, Sophia, go watch TV. They scattered. I waited until I heard cartoons, then turned to Melissa. Her face had gone pale again. Who is Theo? Just someone from work who's been helping with what? Things break when you're gone, Ryan. The garage door, the internet, little stuff. He's good with repairs. And he needs access to my office for that. The kids exaggerate. He helped me move some boxes, that's all. Every word felt like a lie. But I'd learned patience in hostile territory. Push too hard, too fast, and your asset shuts down. I'm sure it's nothing, I said carefully. Just want to make sure the house is secure. Relief flooded her features. Of course you worry too much. But I didn't worry enough. That night, while Melissa slept, I accessed our home security system remotely. The gaps in recording weren't random. They occurred every Tuesday, same time window for the past 4 months. Professional work. I pulled archived footage from the external cameras. There, a black Mercedes sedan, license plate partially obscured, parking exactly where Sophia had drawn it. Same car, same spot, every Tuesday at 2:47 p.m. It would sit for exactly 43 minutes, then leave. The timestamps matched Melissa's work schedule. She worked from home Tuesdays. I ran the partial plate through military databases. The registered owner was Transcendence Holdings LLC, a shell company incorporated in Delaware 6 months ago. No business address, no employees listed. Registered agent was a law firm that specialized in anonymity. My hands started shaking. In 15 years of intelligence work, I'd seen this exact pattern. Foreign operatives establishing surveillance positions, using local assets, creating plausible cover stories. The shell company, the systematic timing, the access to my family. This wasn't an affair. This was a recruitment operation. And my wife was either a willing participant or the perfect unwitting asset. I checked Melissa's phone records through our family plan. Hundreds of calls to a number registered to Tang starting 3 weeks after my deployment began. The calls increased in frequency and duration over time. Tang Theo. I cross-referenced the name through classified databases I still had access to. Nothing clean came back, but Chang was a common operational alias for Chinese intelligence officers. My wife was in contact with a potential Chinese asset. My children had been drawing pictures of surveillance, and I'd been gone for 9 months, leaving them unprotected. The rage hit like a physical force. I wanted to storm upstairs, grab Melissa by the throat, demand answers. But the operative in me knew better. I needed intelligence before action. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Over the next 3 days, I played the perfect returning husband. Took the kids to school, helped with homework, made dinner reservations with Melissa, all while secretly installing surveillance equipment throughout the house, audio pickups in the kitchen, living room, and garage, micro cameras in the front hallway and backyard, GPS tracker on Melissa's car, keystroke logger on her laptop. If Theo was what I suspected, he'd surface soon enough. Tuesday arrived gray and drizzling. I announced I was driving to Quantico for medical clearance, a routine post-deployment requirement. Standard protocol would keep me there most of the day. Instead, I parked 3 blocks away and activated the surveillance feeds on my phone. At 2:43 p.m., the black Mercedes appeared. 4 minutes later, a man approached my front door. Tall, athletic build, dark hair, wearing a casual jacket that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. He moved with the controlled precision I recognized from other operators. Melissa opened the door before he knocked. "You're early," she said, glancing nervously up and down the street. Traffic was light. His accent was faint but detectable. Mandarin inflection beneath careful English. "The kids?" "Jake's at soccer practice. Sophia's at Sarah's house until 5. "Good. We have work to do." They disappeared inside. I switched to internal audio feeds. "Worried about Ryan. He's asking questions." "What kind of questions?" Theo's voice was calm, professional. "About the car? About you? He knows something's wrong." "What did you tell him?" "That you're just helping with repairs, but he's not buying it." Silence. Then Theo's voice lower now. "Melissa, we've discussed this. Your husband's work makes him valuable to certain interests. The children provide natural cover. As long as you follow the plan. I don't like involving the kids. They're not involved. They're simply present. Their observations are useful. Useful for what? Insurance. Your husband works in classified technology. His schedule, his habits, his security protocols. This information has value." A chill surged through me. This wasn't just surveillance. They were using my family to gather intelligence on military operations. "I thought you just wanted to know when he was traveling." Melissa said information has many applications. The photographs you've taken of his office. The documents you've copied. I never copied any documents. The laptop in his safe. You provided the access code. That was just to show you he keeps work materials at home. I didn't know you, Melissa. Theo's voice carried warning. Now you've been compensated well for your cooperation. Don't develop moral complications now. Compensated. My wife had been taking money. I checked her bank records on my phone. They're deposits from Transcendence Holdings. 15,000 over 4 months. Structured to avoid federal reporting requirements. She wasn't an unwitting asset. She was a paid informant. I listened to another 20 minutes of conversation gathering details. Theo wanted photographs of specific documents, details about my upcoming assignments, information about security protocols at Quantico. In return, he promised Melissa financial security and protection if things became complicated. By the time he left, I had enough evidence to bury them both. But I wanted more than burial. I wanted annihilation. That evening, I called my former handler, Colonel Sarah Brennan, now heading a counterintelligence task force at the Pentagon. "Ryan thought you were on leave. I need a secure line." 20 minutes later, I was driving to a safe house in Milan where Brennan waited with 2 FBI counterintelligence specialists. "Jesus Christ," she said after reviewing my recordings. "Your wife's been turned. What's our next move?" "Officially, we report this to federal prosecutors. Your wife gets arrested for espionage. Your kids go into protective custody. You get reassigned somewhere safe. And unofficially, we let this play out. Use your family as bait to identify the broader network, but that puts your children at risk. There's a third option," said Agent Torres, the FBI specialist. "We flip your wife. Use her to feed false information back to her handler. I shook my head. She betrayed my children. I'm not working with her. Then what do you want, Ryan? I looked at the surveillance photo spread across the table. Theo entering my house, Melissa counting cash, my kids playing in a yard that was being systematically violated. I want them destroyed legally, completely, permanently. Brennan studied my face. That's not like you. I'm not the same person who left 9 months ago. She was right. The Ryan Blackwood who, deployed to Eastern Europe, believed in protocol, procedure, working within the system. The man sitting in this room had been forged by betrayal into something harder. What are you thinking? Torres asked. We build a case that doesn't just convict, it obliterates. Espionage charges for Melissa. Sedition if we can prove intent for Theo. We track his network, identify his superiors, roll up the entire operation. But first, I need to know exactly how deep this goes. Over the next week, I played the devoted husband while federal investigators mapped the network around my family. Theo wasn't just running Melissa. He had 3 other assets in the DC area. All military spouses, all providing low-level intelligence on deployments, base security, operational planning. The operation had a name, Suburban Window. Chinese intelligence was systematically exploiting military families to gather intelligence on U.S. operations. And my wife was case study number 1. The breaking point came the following Tuesday. I told Melissa I was flying to Fort Bragg for consultations. Another lie. Instead, I was parked 2 blocks away watching the feeds when Sophia came home early from school. Sick with a fever, the neighbor who'd been watching her explained apologetically. On my audio feed, I heard Melissa panic. She's supposed to be at school until 3 o'clock. Children get sick, Theo replied calmly. It changes nothing, but she'll see you. Then we adapt. I watched my daughter stumble into the kitchen, flushed and exhausted, while a foreign intelligence operative sat at my kitchen table. Hi, Sophia, Theo said, his voice suddenly warm, paternal. I'm Uncle Theo. Your mom's told me so much about you. Are you the man from the black car? Melissa went rigid. Theo smiled, very observant. Yes, that's my car. Why do you watch our house? I'm helping your mom with some grown-up things. Nothing for you to worry about. Sophia nodded, trusting in the way only children can trust. Then she did something that made my heart stop. She walked to the refrigerator and pointed at her drawing. I drew your car. See the red on the windows? That's because you look scary sometimes. Theo studied the drawing with professional interest. You're very talented. Do you draw other things? Pictures of Daddy's work. Sometimes. Mom says they're pretty. Melissa grabbed Sophia's hand. Why don't you go rest on the couch? I'll bring you some juice. But Theo wasn't finished. What kind of pictures of Daddy's work? His computer room. The safe with all the beepy things. Jake knows the number code. Sophia, go watch TV. Melissa said urgently, but the damage was done. I just heard my 8-year-old daughter, innocent and trusting, provide intelligence on classified materials to a hostile operative. That night, after Melissa thought I was asleep, she crept out to the garage. I followed silently, watching through micro cameras as she photographed documents from my briefcase, deployment schedules, personnel rosters, equipment manifests. By then she knew she was in too deep. If she didn't keep feeding Theo, she feared he'd expose her. Every click of the camera wasn't just betrayal. It was desperation. She wasn't just cooperating anymore. She was actively stealing classified information. The next morning I didn't go to work. Instead, I drove straight to the FBI field office. I want to end this, I told Torres and Brennan. Now we need more time to map the full network. My daughter is being questioned by a hostile operative. My wife is photographing classified documents in my garage. It ends now. Torres nodded slowly. Coordinated takedown. I want them both in federal custody by end of business today. But Brennan held up a hand. Ryan, think about this. Melissa will likely cooperate for a plea deal. Theo will be deported or exchanged. Your life gets turned upside down, but it gets back to normal eventually. Normal? I laughed and the sound was bitter. My wife sold access to my children for $15,000. There is no normal anymore. So what do you want? I've been thinking about that question for days. What I wanted was justice, not the clean, procedural kind that left room for plea bargains and reduced sentences. I wanted consequences that matched the violation. I want to testify. I want the full case made public. I want Melissa facing 25 years for espionage. I want Theo's network exposed, his superiors identified, his operation burned to the ground. And your children? We'll learn that actions have consequences. That betrayal isn't forgiven just because you say you're sorry. Brennan studied my face. You're not the same man I deployed 9 months ago. Good, I said. That man trusted too much. The operation launched at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. Poetic justice for a surveillance pattern that had run every Tuesday for months. FBI tactical teams positioned around my neighborhood while I sat in a surveillance van 2 blocks away watching feeds from my house. Melissa was in the kitchen on the phone with Theo, confirming their afternoon meeting. At 3:45, Theo's Mercedes pulled into its usual spot. This time, I watched him through a tactical observation lens instead of a security camera. Target acquired, the tactical leader said through my earpiece. Wait for him to enter the house, I replied. I want them both. Theo approached the front door. Melissa opened it without hesitation, glancing around nervously before letting him in. Both subjects in the house came the report. Execute. What happened next unfolded with military precision. Tactical teams breached front and rear simultaneously. Flashbangs detonating in the hallway and kitchen. Theo reached for a concealed tool but was tackled before he could move. Melissa screamed, tried to run upstairs, was intercepted by agents who'd already secured the second floor. The whole thing took 90 seconds. I watched from the surveillance van as they dragged both of them out in restraints. Melissa was sobbing, mascara streaming down her face, looking around desperately for someone who might help her. Theo was calm, professional, even in custody. He caught sight of the surveillance van and looked directly at the camera, giving me a slight nod of acknowledgement. He'd known this moment would come. It was the nature of the business. But Melissa looked genuinely shocked. She'd thought her cooperation was a game, a way to make easy money without real consequences. She was about to learn otherwise. Federal agents, I heard through the audio feed as they searched the house. We have a warrant for these premises. They found everything. The cash in Melissa's dresser drawer, the photographed documents in her laptop, the burner phone she'd been using to communicate with Theo, the USB drives containing classified information. By 6 p.m., both subjects were in federal custody. Melissa was charged with conspiracy to commit espionage, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, and acting as an unregistered foreign agent. Theo was charged with espionage, conspiracy, and illegal surveillance. The children were with my parents by the time the news trucks arrived. 3 days later, I sat across from Melissa in the federal detention center. She looked smaller somehow, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of the designer clothes Theo's money had bought her. Ryan, please. You have to understand, I never meant for this to get so serious. How serious did you think espionage was? It wasn't espionage. I was just sharing information about your schedule, your travel. He said it was for protection. Protection from what? He said there were people who might want to hurt you. That knowing your movements would help keep you safe. I pulled out photographs from the FBI raid, pictures of classified documents she'd taken, transcripts of conversations about military operations, bank records showing payments from Chinese shell companies. This looks like protection to you. Her face crumpled. You lied to me. No, Melissa, you lied to yourself and you sold our children to do it. I never touched the kids. You gave a hostile intelligence operative access to our home. You let him question Sophia about my work. You used information from Jake to access classified systems. I needed the money. Do you know what it's like being alone for months at a time? The bills, the repairs, trying to keep everything together while you're off playing soldier. The words hit like a slap. Playing soldier? I was defending this country while you were selling it for $15,000. It wasn't some massive conspiracy. $15,000 was your retainer. The full operation would have paid you 10 times that much. She went pale. What operation? I slid another document across the table. The FBI's analysis of Theo's network, his objectives, his timeline. Suburban window. A systematic campaign to compromise military families across the DC area. You weren't his only asset, Melissa. You were just his first success. She read in silence, her face growing whiter with each page. You see the column labeled Target Intelligence? That's what he wanted from our family. Deployment schedules for special operations, security protocols for classified facilities, personnel information for intelligence officers. I didn't give him any of that. You gave him our children. You gave him access to our home. You gave him time and opportunity to collect. Everything else. She started crying again, but I felt nothing. The woman across the table was a stranger who'd worn my wife's face for 9 months while systematically betraying everything I'd sworn to protect. What happens now? She whispered. Your attorney will recommend a plea bargain. 25 years reduced to 8 with cooperation. 8 years if you're lucky. If you testify against Theo's network. If you provide details about every conversation, every photograph, every piece of information you shared. And if I don't, life in federal prison. Treason charges carry no statute of limitations. She stared at me through the reinforced glass. You're really going to do this? Destroy our family over some mistakes? I didn't destroy our family, Melissa. You sold it. 2 weeks later, the case went before a federal grand jury. I testified for 6 hours, walking through the timeline, the evidence, the national security implications. Melissa had agreed to cooperate, providing details about 17 other military spouses Theo had approached. 3 had refused his overtures. 14 had provided varying levels of cooperation. The network stretched from Norfolk to San Diego, targeting Navy, Army, and Air Force families with access to classified information. Suburban Window was the most successful foreign intelligence operation on U.S. soil since the Cold War. Theo's real name was Chen Wei, an MSS colonel with 20 years' experience in recruitment operations. He'd been in the United States for 2 years, building a network that fed intelligence directly to Beijing. The breadth of the compromise was staggering. Chinese intelligence had access to deployment schedules, equipment manifests, personnel rosters, security protocols, and operational planning for 3 major military commands. All 3 military wives who thought they were earning easy money by sharing harmless information. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Melissa testified against Chen, detailing his recruitment techniques, his payment methods, his intelligence requirements. She tried to portray herself as a victim, manipulated, threatened, coerced into cooperation. But the evidence told a different story. Bank records showed systematic payments over 8 months. Audio recordings captured her actively seeking classified information. Photographs documented her methodical copying of sensitive documents. She wasn't a victim. She was a collaborator. The jury deliberated for 47 minutes. Chen was sentenced to life without parole. Melissa received 12 years in federal prison with eligibility for parole after 8 years with good behavior. 14 other military spouses received sentences ranging from 3 to 15 years. The network was dismantled. The operation was burned. Chinese intelligence lost years of development and millions of dollars in infrastructure. But the victory felt hollow. Standing outside the courthouse after the sentencing, I watched Melissa's parents comfort each other on the courthouse steps. They'd lost their daughter to federal prison. My children had lost their mother to espionage charges. You did the right thing, Brennan said beside me. Did I? She made her choice when she took their money. You just made sure there were consequences. What about the kids? They'll be okay. Kids are resilient. I wasn't so sure. Jacob stopped talking to me after the arrest. Sophia asked, every night when Mommy was coming home, how do you explain to an 8-year-old that Mommy committed treason? 6 months later, I received a new assignment heading a task force on foreign exploitation of military families. My job was to identify vulnerabilities, develop countermeasures, and train military personnel on protecting their households from recruitment operations. I was good at it, too good. I'd become an expert on betrayal. My first briefing was to a room full of military wives at Quantico. I stood at the podium looking out at faces like Melicia's, young, trusting, overwhelmed by the demands of military life. The Foreign Intelligence Services target military families, I began. Not because we're weak but because we're isolated. Deployments create vulnerabilities. Financial stress creates opportunities. Loneliness creates desperation. A woman in the third row raised her hand. How do we know if someone's trying to recruit us? They won't approach you as foreign spies. I said they'll approach as friends, helpful neighbors, romantic interests, business opportunities. They'll offer something you need, money, companionship, assistance in exchange for information that seems harmless. What kind of information? Your husband's schedule, his travel patterns, his work location, details about base security, names of his colleagues, access to his home office. The room was silent. They'll convince you that sharing this information helps protect your family. They'll make you feel important, valuable, appreciated. They'll pay you enough money to ease your financial stress, but not enough to attract federal attention. On the other hand, how do we protect ourselves? Recognize that nothing is harmless. Your husband's deployment schedule isn't just a calendar. It's intelligence about military operations. His work computer isn't just office equipment. It's a gateway to classified systems. Your children's observations aren't just innocent comments. They're surveillance reports. A woman in the back row spoke up. What if we've already shared information? What if we didn't know? I looked at her, young, frightened, probably wondering if she'd already crossed lines she couldn't uncross. Reported immediately. Contact-based security, FBI counterintelligence, or your husband's command. The earlier you report contact, the better your options. What happens if we've taken money? The room held its breath. That depends on what you've provided in return, I said carefully. Cooperation with federal authorities, full disclosure, and assistance in counter-operations can significantly affect prosecutorial decisions. What about our families? That depends on your choices going forward. After the briefing, she approached me. The woman who'd asked about taking money. Mid-20s wedding ring. Nervous energy of someone carrying a guilty secret. Can I speak with you privately? We found an empty conference room. She sat across from me, hands trembling. I think I'm in trouble. Tell me. My husband's deployed to Germany. A man approached me 6 weeks ago. Said he was a journalist writing about military families. Asked if he could interview me about the challenges of deployment. Did you agree? Yes. He was charming, sympathetic. Asked about our financial situation, my husband's work, how I manage a loan. Did he offer compensation? She nodded. $500 for the interview. Said he might want follow-up conversations. Have there been follow-up conversations? 3 more each time he paid me. Each time he asked more detailed questions about what? My husband's unit, their equipment when they're coming home. Classic recruitment pattern. Start with innocent questions. Build trust. Gradually escalate requests. Has he asked you to photograph anything? Access your husband's computer. Provide documents. He mentioned that photos of my husband in uniform would be good for the article. Maybe pictures of his gear, his workspace. Have you provided any? She hesitated. A few. What kind? My husband's desk at home. His laptop bag. Some documents he left out. My stomach dropped. What kind of documents? Orders? Travel schedules? Contact list. Ma'am, what's your name? Jennifer Walsh. My husband is Sergeant First Class Peter Walsh, 10th Special Forces Group. Special Forces deployment schedules, equipment manifests, personnel information. Exactly the intelligence Chen had been seeking through Melissa. Jennifer, I need you to listen carefully. The man who approached you is likely a foreign intelligence operative. The information you've provided has significant national security implications. Her face went white. Oh my God. But you came forward voluntarily. That counts for something. What do I do? We're going to call FBI counterintelligence. You're going to tell them everything. Every conversation, every photograph, every document. Will I go to prison? That depends on what you've shared and how much you cooperate going forward. My husband will hate me. Your husband will be grateful you stopped this before it got worse. I hope that was true. 2 hours later, Jennifer was in FBI custody, providing a full debriefing about her contact with journalist Thomas Klein. Another alias for another Chinese operative running another recruitment operation. Klein was arrested at his hotel that evening. His real name was Lu Fun, a Chinese intelligence officer with 12 years' experience in information operations. His network included 4 other military spouses, all providing intelligence on special operations units across 3 military bases. Jennifer's cooperation led to the disruption of the entire operation. She received 2 years probation and community service in exchange for her testimony. Her marriage survived, barely standing in my empty house that night. I wondered if mine could have survived if Melissa had made Jennifer's choice, coming forward instead of going deeper, choosing loyalty over money, trusting her husband instead of trusting a stranger. But Melissa had made different choices, and choices have consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. Can I come home this weekend? He'd been staying with my parents since the trial, angry and confused about everything that had happened. This was the first time he'd initiated contact in 3 months. I typed back, of course I miss you. Is Mom really not coming back? Not for a long time. I hate her. She made mistakes, but she's still your mother. She hurt us. Yes, she did. Did you have to send her to prison? It was the question I'd been dreading. The one I'd asked myself every night since the trial. Yes, I typed. I had to protect our country, and I had to protect you from Mom. From people who would use Mom to hurt you. A long pause. Then I understand. Maybe he did. Or maybe he was just trying to make sense of a world where mothers become traitors and fathers become prosecutors. Saturday morning, Jake came home. He was taller, more serious, aged beyond his 11 years by events he shouldn't have had to witness. We sat in the kitchen where Melissa had once counted Chinese money while our children played upstairs. Dad, yeah. Are we safe now? Yes, we're safe. Will other people try to hurt us? Possibly. That's why I do the work I do now, to stop them before they get close to families like ours. He nodded thoughtfully. Can I help? Help how? Learn about this stuff so I can protect Sophia when she gets older. I looked at my son, barely 11, already thinking about protecting his sister from threats he was too young to fully understand. When you're older, if you're still interested, we'll talk about it. Promise? Promise. That afternoon, we drove to pick up Sophia from my parents' house. She ran to the car, backpack bouncing, still young enough to trust that adults would fix whatever was broken. Daddy, Jake, are we going home? We're going home. I said, all of us, the three of us. What about Mommy? Mommy can't come home right now because she was bad. Out of the mouths of babes. Because she made choices that hurt people. Will she say sorry? She already has. Will that fix it? I met Jake's eyes in the rearview mirror. He was waiting for my answer too. Some things can't be fixed with sorry, I said. Some choices have consequences that last a very long time. Is that why you sent her away? I didn't send her away, sweetheart. A judge decided she had to go to a special place where people think about the choices they've made. Like timeout. Like timeout, but much longer. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Daddy, yes. I won't make bad choices. I know you won't. And I'll protect Jake too. Jake smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in my office looking at the classified reports spread across my desk. New cases, new networks, new families being targeted by foreign intelligence services. The work was important, necessary. It gave meaning to the destruction of my own family, but it didn't fill the silence in the house where Melissa's laughter used to echo. My phone rang. Unknown number. Major Blackwood speaking. This is Lieutenant Colonel Evans from the Pentagon. We have a situation developing in Norfolk. 3 Navy families showing signs of foreign contact. We need your team on site tomorrow. Understood. I'll have my people briefed and ready to travel. Good. And Major. This one's big. Could be the largest network we've identified since Suburban Window. I closed my eyes. Another network. Another group of military families being systematically exploited. Another cluster of wives who thought they were making easy money until federal agents kicked down their doors. I'll be there, I said. After hanging up, I walked upstairs to check on the kids. Jake was asleep with a book about military history on his chest. Sophia had drawn another picture, our family of 3 standing in front of our house, smiling. No black cars in this one. I tucked them both in, turned off the lights, and went back to work. There were files to review. Briefings to prepare, a network to unravel. Somewhere in Norfolk, wives were taking money from strangers. Husbands were deploying without knowing their families had been compromised. Children were drawing pictures of cars that shouldn't be there. And I was the man who would burn it all down. Some people called me a hero. Others called me vindictive. The truth was simpler. I was a man who'd learned that trust, once broken, could never be repaired, only replaced with consequences severe enough to deter the next betrayal. Melissa would serve 8 years in federal prison. Chin would die behind bars. The Suburban Window network was extinct. But somewhere, another operative was identifying another vulnerable family. Another lonely wife was considering an offer that seemed too good to refuse. My job was to make sure those families didn't end up like mine. And I was very, very good at my job.